ask it. I haven't spoken to this old man for a long, long time. When I say old man, live in Westminster, former Conservative MP and British farmer, and presumably, if he's got a Barber jacket on, he's a far-right activist. Neil Parish, a very good afternoon to you, sir. Oh, you fascist!
Good afternoon, Jeremy. Nice to talk to you again.
Look at that jacket, you far-right thug. What's going on? That's Barber, isn't it?
That's right, yes. Well, it's not actually a barber, because I'm too mean to buy a real barber. But, you know, I mean, I think, you know, people ought to sort of work out that farmers go out in the rain, and there's nothing better than a wax jacket to keep the rain out. And the farmers did certainly march through some appalling weather yesterday, and it showed how much and how strongly they felt about this government just really trying to destroy family farms. I don't think, Jeremy, they seem to want private farms, private land, private anything, do they? I don't know what they're about. This lot. I thought they were going to be Blairite, but they're more proper socialists, aren't they?
It's really interesting, and I'm glad you made that point. I mean, the farmers have today vowed to escalate those protests if Rachel Reeves does not agree to urgent talks. We'll talk about the reality of yesterday's decision, but I take your point there. We seem to have a government. It is pure socialism, and I thought that, like you, I thought that Starmer might be sort of Blair-esque. He's proper Jim Callaghan socialist-esque. This is a guy who seems to be taking aim, Neil, at anybody who's either put something into our society, like pensioners, is part of the fabric of our society, like farmers, or, you know, shame on you if you're a businessman. I spoke to a guy on the train today and he said, I've built a business, I've been going for 3 years, I've got 8 people, I am going to be crippled by the business taxation system that they've brought in. It's almost as if this quest to screw anybody that does anything away from the norm whilst bloating the public sector again and again and again. It can't work, can it?
It can't, because, you see, you need the private sector to pay the taxes and produce the business to then look after the public sector. We need the public sector, but we don't need a bloated one. And it's... I mean, you talk about the Callaghan government. What brought me into politics was in the 1970s they were going to bring in transfer tax that were going to cripple farms then. And that sent me into the Tory camp, and it sent me into politics in a big way, because I thought this was not going to happen. And we got it all just, you know, recycling. But the trouble is, Jeremy, they saw off, you know, wrongly, £300 for every pensioner, taking away their heating allowance, driving them probably not only to being cold, but probably into a health service that's already overstretched. So bloody short-sighted, excuse my language. And now they seem to be targeting farmers, they're targeting lots of small businesses, and they're all struggling to... You can't take 25 billion in national insurance and expect it's not going to affect businesses. I got a guy next to me runs a butchery business and a farm, and, you know, he's got quite a lot of workers. It's costing him thousands, and already, you know, he's struggling. And I just think they wanted growth out of this budget. Jeremy, that's the one thing they're not going to get out of this budget, is growth. They're going to shrink the economy if they're not careful, because you can't go on piling money into the public sector and expect that to grow. We've already seen inflation rise today. I don't think they've got a damn clue where they're going.
I couldn't agree with you more, Neil. Now, you were the former chair of the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Select Committee, a farmer in the past and somebody who represented a rural community. What's interesting to me is that the large Labour intake at the last election after the debacle of the Tories, many have areas, large rural areas now, who'd have thought it for an urban party, in their constituencies. I suspect, unless I'm wrong, and I called the pensioners debacle, I call that his poll tax moment. This is on a similar scale, perhaps of even more, because the farming community is not going to give up. What people need to understand, and what I'm going to say every single time we talk about this, it's a bit like saying, oh, I'm going to have a go at private schools because you're all millionaires. Farmers work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They get between 1% and 2% of the value of their farm in income. They don't do it for the money, Neil. Try and explain to people listening today why so many do it for so little to pass it down, as well as providing our foodstuffs. Is it just intrinsically built into a farmer?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're born to work. You're born to look after the farm. I mean, I was milking cows at 13 and then left school at 16. Later on, I went into politics, but really farming is in the blood, and I've gone back to it now. And it's just in your blood. And I think when your grandfather perhaps bought the farm or started the farm off, and you don't want to be the one to lose it. It's something about producing that food, looking after that livestock. It's all part of your DNA. And I don't think, you know, the government gets it, and I think people see £1 million as a lot of money, but as you said, probably about £10,000 profit per every million. You work it out, it's not a lot of money, and if you're expected to pay 200,000 in tax for every million, and you see, it doesn't take much to, your tractors can be 100,000, 150,000, your stock's worth a lot of money, your land, 100 acres is worth £1 million even without a house. So the whole thing is crazy. Tom, the president of the NFU yesterday said that about 70% of commercial family farms are going to be affected.
Well, and I want to take this up with you, because I've just been speaking to somebody in another programme, and I want to put this to you fresh and new, Neil. So Starmer was in Brazil on his 15th trip in 22 days. I've no idea what that is. Maybe he doesn't want to be at home. Anyway, that's another story. Here's the truth, right? I don't understand. He says it will only affect 500 farms, and yet the chairman of the NFU said 70% of small commercial farms will be affected. We heard earlier today, and the government have admitted this, that they managed to make a basic mistake. If Ryan knows this, they mistook acres for hectares. Have you heard this? So they got the average size of farms wrong in their analysis, because they don't know the difference between a hectare and an acre.
That's right. I mean, there's 2.5 or 2.46 to be precise acres in a hectare,
yep.
And so, you know, and you see, they didn't. The Treasury, I believe, did not liaise with DEFRA, and DEFRA do not agree, and this is the government department for farming, who do not agree with the figures that the Treasury have put out, and so for Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, to keep prattling on with these figures, which are plainly wrong. And you see, what he'll do, being in Brazil, is very appropriate, actually, Jeremy, because what we'll do in a minute is we will drive food production out of this country, import it from Brazil. They'll knock down the rainforest, and a tree in the rainforest holds 3 times as much carbon as a tree planted here. So, I mean, the whole thing is crazy, and the government should rethink it.
Just now, Steve Reed, the Environment Secretary, it's been announced, has only ever been to one farm in the 4 months he's been in his position of power. You are part of that rural community. I want to move on to something else, but I'm right, am I not, in saying it was a peaceful protest, there's real anger, and they're not going to give this up, are they, Neil? Not at all.
They're not, because you see, I mean, you know, 4 years ago we had COVID, we relied on our farmers, we relied on that food from farm shops and everything else. Our milk supply, our egg supply into our big retailers, all comes from this country. All our milk comes from this country, and all our eggs come from this country. If we really wanted to be mean, we could actually stop that supply. We've got to be careful, Jeremy, because we've got a lot of public support. I was out with this march here yesterday, and there were a lot of Londoners out here with us, not just farmers. They'd come along actually to support us. So I think you'll find the one thing that we can do, you see, we've got a lot of trouble with sewage, and we've got a lot of trouble in our rivers, and the one thing that we take as farmers is a lot of treated sewage, and we put it on the land, because when it's been treated and the heavy metals have been taken out, it's safe to spread on the land. Now, if these companies, these water companies, haven't got anywhere to put this sewage, I tell you what, that might bring the government to its senses. What was it in the 1800s or 1900s, when there was a smell here in London, they did something with the sewers? Well, perhaps this will be the time the government might smell the sewage and actually do something for the farmers.
I wouldn't wish on it, but I'm glad that we as a station and all the people that are listening are hugely supportive, because I think it's really important. Neil, before we let you go, the other big news, and it was literally announced earlier that British Storm Shadow missiles are being fired into Russia, long-range missiles provided by the British government, permission for the Ukrainians to fire them into Russia. A lot of people saying good, other people saying, oh my God, this country is on the verge of, you know, World War III in Europe. Putin's a madman. Biden's, you know, demob happy and just wants to leave more problems for Donald Trump. In the midst of all that, the bloody Defence Secretary in the last hour has announced, whilst discussing Ukraine, defence spending cuts to save £500 million. £500 million, 5 warships, tanks, drones. We have very little anyway. 2 questions. 1, how does that make any sense when we are seemingly where we're at with the world? But secondly, I made a point earlier, love your take on this. Why don't we cut some off the foreign aid budget and spend it on protecting ourselves, the British people, Neil Parish?
Yeah, I mean, you're certainly right about India because, I mean, their economy is doing well and still a lot of aid is going into India, and so there is room for that. I also think, you know, we had a government that made so many promises before they got in that are abandoning them. And if I remember rightly, you know, the defence spending was going to go up and we were going to be safe under Labour. No, we're not, because, you see, I think it's actually right that the Ukrainians should fire those missiles into Russia. I think it's long overdue. You've got the Russians bringing in the North Koreans and God knows what. And I think when Trump comes in, they will sue for peace. The Ukrainians will probably have to give up some land, but perhaps we can save a lot of lives. But in the meantime, let them have a chance to really bring home to the Russian people, because, you see, trouble is Russian propaganda and Putin's propaganda, they don't know what's going on in Ukraine. They don't know, you know, they're only getting the message from Putin. So, you know, and as far as defence spending in this country, we should be upping it vastly, because it is an uncertain world. We don't know where it's going. Trump may actually, you know, do a good job, believe it or not, in bringing about something, or he might blow a complete fuse and the whole thing goes up like a powder keg. And if it did, of course, we would need our defence facilities and we need our armed forces. We need to be able to have proper equipment, proper supplies, and we're taking our ships away. I mean, you made the point that, you know, we will not be able to land our storm troops because we won't have any ships to do it. Remember when we had an aircraft carrier, we had to borrow some planes from the French, and that was under the previous government. So, for goodness sake, where on earth are we going with all this?
I've missed you, Neil Parish. You're an absolutely wonderful man. We thank you for coming on the show. Really, really good. Neil Parish, former Conservative MP and British farmer.